Hi, I'm Ramesh Nagarajah, a recent graduate of the Naval Academy. I work with the Stockdale Center, where we study ethical leadership. Part of effective ethical leadership is a phrase you've likely heard before: know your people. But this is more than knowing their birthday or their kids' names. It's caring enough to understand their background and their struggles. Recent events throughout our nation have sparked many conversations about race relations in the United States. While the military has gone further than perhaps any other entity to create a merit-based organization, it would be naive to think that the contentions of our greater populace fail to infiltrate our service, which is composed of members from the same population. That said, there are assumptions that we make about each other in every category, outside of race. And the hope is that this can be a starting point in more intentionally engaging and uncomfortable conversations, all with the goal of developing more conscientious leaders. Leaders who recognize that being aware of these attitudes is essential to effective and holistic leadership. So, with the hope of exploring how such conversations can and should be occurring at the Academy, I sat down with 3 recent graduates to discuss their experiences as Black members of the brigade. What they share is a reflection of their individual journeys, but I believe their message can help us all in our development as leaders, teammates, and most importantly, fellow humans. I'm going to start with just introduce yourself, where you're from.
Rahn Bailey from Houston, Texas. I came to the Academy as a recruited football athlete, played football for 2 years, NART for the other 2 years, and I selected surface warfare, be in Norfolk, Virginia for the next 2.5 years.
So just tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Troy Monroe. I'm from Columbus, Georgia. Grew up on the south side of the city. I recently graduated from the Academy Class of 2020. Marine Corps ground select. While I was at the Academy, I played sprint football, ended up being team captain my senior year, and I was also the president of Midshipmen Black Studies Club.
I'm Kaylah Hodge. I'm from Upper Marlboro, Maryland. I played tennis 4 years at the Academy. I majored in political science, and I took 4 semesters of Japanese.
My story's a little bit different. I got hurt my senior year in football in high school, so out of all my offers, Navy was the one big school, and I was scared because if I got hurt again, other universities would take my scholarship. I know the Academy, everyone's here on a full ride. So that's really why I picked the Academy.
Being from Maryland, it was like a dream come true. I saw Midshipmen and White since I was a little kid, so it was a great opportunity. I
just realized that I'm gonna finish this out, go to the prep school first, and plebe year, I realized I'm gonna finish the Academy. I really fell in love with tight friendships and the service. Because I realized, all my life people told me I'm a leader, but I haven't really put a lot of effort into it. And I feel here at the Academy, they really build you up as a leader. So that's what really kept me at the Academy.
I did enjoy my time at the Academy. However, as a Black female, I definitely felt my color every single day. I felt that I was a minority every single day. Even when it came to leadership experiences, I was a little nervous about being a squad leader because I'm are they going to respect me? Am I going to, get that natural authority that a white male would get that a Black female might not get? I have to approach it as, okay, I'm not only a female, but I'm Black, and how am I going to, connect with these people? We have all different backgrounds. And so it's going to be challenging, and I guess the only thing I can do is just be myself.
I feel I came out of the Academy, Black football player, so people already put a specific type of opinion on me. Man of the week is I hung out with the Black athletes or the Black football players. And then when I stopped playing football, I diversified my friend groups. I'm from Houston, but I lived in a lot of different areas all over the country. So when I stopped hanging out with as many of my Black teammates, I then received the role as a token Black guy because I had a lot more white friends. And that experience was different because I always felt keep my mouth shut in certain conversations, or even having to feel I'm not really about to stand here and listen to this and correcting people.
That
So there were definitely times when I was on the team where I would feel like kind of excluded, especially my freshman year. Like the guys would get together on the weekends and stuff like that, and I wouldn't hear anything about it. Like sometimes I felt kind of ostracized from like the entire team in general because like I had different music tastes, or I felt differently about large political topics and things of that nature. And so like I kind of just like stepped away from it the majority of the time versus like actually stepping out of my comfort zone and like see like what was going on the other side. And after doing that, there were still like several times where I was like, I'm still like definitely not comfortable with what's going on, but I was definitely more comfortable like saying something about the things I weren't comfortable about and discussions I weren't like that made me uncomfortable originally.
Just try to be myself, you know. I try to be as genuine as possible. Be myself. I do get in these situations where I feel like I have to put on a front because I am representing so many Black people. Since there are so few African American females at the academy, I'm always aware that I am representing more than just myself.
A lot of people don't really understand that from my perspective, especially, you know, I've heard it all. Like even some of my Black friends, they call me Uncle Tom because they see me with a bunch of white guys and I'm over here, I guess, acting a certain way they're not really used to. And then my white friends, they're kind of making fun of me because, oh, like Ron's with his Black friends, like don't go up to Ron's Black friends. And I mean, we laugh it off for a little bit, but to me it kind of hurts because I'm always trying to assimilate to people. I really just want to be Ron, but to them, like they only like a certain part of me.
It starts early. I think one of the most interesting things about our leadership courses that we take is that we don't really talk about inclusion that much. We don't talk about like racism and like the morals behind racism, Zionism, the morals behind Zionism, or like being anti-Semitic and things of that nature. Like we don't talk about it. And that's one of those things where I'm like, I think that's something that if they introduce that early on, you won't have instances 2 years later where you have a kid saying the N-word or you have a kid tweeting anti-Semitic tweets. Or
with some of the white people, they see Black people as like thugs, you know, like, or like there's athletes that are really like trying to be leaders in the academy. Even like with my roommates, I wore a do-rag to go to sleep, and he's questioning why I'm wearing a do-rag. So I'm just for my hair. I'm not trying to be some thug, or don't put me in a box like that.
First and foremost, we're here at the Naval Academy to learn leadership. So as a Black female, I guess stepping up and being assertive, that might be like come across as sassy. I don't want that sassiness to come across. I want to be like, oh, that's just Kaylah Hodge leading. That's just her taking charge. That's just her doing her job.
And that's been like my whole life, trying to make people comfortable, because you know, I'm 6'2", 240 Black man, like I'm always a target, you know what I mean? So I've always tend to make people feel comfortable.
If I get on restriction, like nobody, like a white person isn't thinking about, if I get on restriction, like other white people, like I messed it up for other white people. It's not like a ripple effect. Whereas like being Black, it's like, oh my gosh, like you think about those things, you think about your actions way more.
What sort of experience did you have with, you felt like your race had a lot to do with how you were being treated or regarded by someone in charge of you?
A former basketball player here, they made him like cut all his hair off because I think the company officer said because his hair was so curly, it was unprofessional. Like, how can that come out of someone's mouth?
Yeah. But it did.
Yeah, that literally came out of his mouth.
And I think that point really speaks to, there's a lot of midshipmen who are very good-hearted and don't find themselves often being guilty of these things and don't see them because they're not experiencing it through the lens of a minority, that when they hear these stories, like they don't even believe that they happen. So like when you're sharing a case study and trying to talk about it, some midshipmen are just like, well, this isn't even realistic. Like this would never happen. Yeah. When like the truth is this stuff does happen, like often enough that we care to talk about it.
I wrote an essay, and I wrote a pretty good essay in government. My professor told me, like, put me to the side, was like, this is a very good essay, like who wrote it for you? You know, like, just kind of had a perspective on me. I was like, I can't use a thesaurus or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, how you gonna just assume on me that I didn't write this?
Honestly, what broke my heart the most from these past couple of months, it has to be the retired captain. Like, how did you make it to a 06 position and you are willing to, I mean, I know he was on live by accident, but you're willing to talk this out loud. It's one thing if you think it. It is one thing if you think it, and that's still really bad. But to say it out loud is different. Like, you felt that you were angered by this black female who was just sticking up for minorities or whatever the case may be. But it's sad because since I am a minority, I don't know who I'm interacting with. Like, I don't know their opinions on me, so it's kind of scary. As a black female, I do hold a lot in. I don't feel like I can share my feelings because I don't want to, be labeled something else.
People they think they know the gist of it, but they don't think about the deeper parts of it and
how far forward it travels.
Exactly.
My grandmother, on my mom's side, she was a sharecropper in Louisiana. So one of my early experiences with her was, you can't trust white people. I grew up, I went to a Catholic school, so I was around a bunch of white people. So my mom would tell my grandma to stop, but she would be like, no, you can't trust white people. But that's her experience. She was a sharecropper.
All right. For me to be a first generation college student is very strange, and me comparing myself to somebody whose great grandfather graduated from Harvard, that's a large gap, right? It's strange though when you have a conversation about the city of Minneapolis. There's a Kunta Kinte memorial statue outside that people don't even know is there. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things is well, you don't know it's there because you're not taught it. Why aren't we learning these things? We learn everything else in that American history. Mm-hmm. Why aren't we learning African American history? Why aren't we talking about the traumas and things of that nature versus just trying to paint over it with a white brush like it never happened?
Me and 3 other my close friends, we all picked the same ship. We just all happen to be black and former football players. We all picked the same ship in Norfolk. And after ship selection, I'm taking pictures. I'm on cloud 9. I know my future. This admiral comes up to me. And the reason why he comes up to me is because I believe we sat at the same table for the dinner for ship selection. And he asked me if we're all football players. And I said, yes, sir. And then he says, I'm gonna keep an eye out on your ship. Specifically just to me. Which really didn't make a lot of sense to me, because what could he, is he, we're doing well? Is he assuming we're gonna wreck the ship? What is he trying to hint at me and my close friends? And I can't really put a lot subjectiveness on the situation, because there were people who were lacrosse players on the same lacrosse team who picked the same ship. But I just know for that situation, it was very ironic how he came up to me. 4 black guys, we're all 6'2" and up, 240 and up, and then he's going to assume that we're going to do a terrible job. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't really wrap my head around that.
Mm-hmm. No congratulations.
No congratulations. The first thing he said was he's going to keep an eye on my ship, and he's an admiral.
And so yeah, definitely.
Why something like that exists?
Absolutely. So Midshipmen Black Studies Club for me was the first time I was able to get ingrained into the academy, the midshipman culture, where I didn't feel everything that I thought and it felt personally was abnormal. Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird being in a social circle where you always feel like the outcast. Mm-hmm. Midshipmen Black Studies Club was the first group that I felt like I belonged, and because of that, I was able to get mentors who were older in the academy and understood the struggle of adjusting from my type of background to being involved in a public white institution, learning to speak the language and things like I said earlier. I think it was probably one of the most beneficial clubs for me to become part of, because it took me from being uncomfortable and have no outlet whatsoever to voice my discomfort to, okay, you're uncomfortable, this is why you're uncomfortable, this is what you need to do to not be as uncomfortable, and I was able to learn from that. And mind you, Jim Crow wasn't really repealed until almost the 1950s, 1960s era. And black men are going in and out of jail during this entire time. You have to think about it, they're still being used for slave labor. And people don't realize that some people's grandparents were living as sharecroppers. That's your grandparents. That's not too many generations removed. And some people don't realize that some kids' parents are we're part of the generation where they integrated schools, and they remember getting eggs thrown at them. They remember people throwing dirt and rocks at their buses because they didn't want to go to school with an African American person. It would be times I would get frustrated because, like, for some reason, when people want to talk about the race thing and like the things that this country has like done to black people in the past, it becomes an elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. But really, like, majority of the time, like, people like me, I just want to be able to move forward from it, but we can't move forward without talking about it. Like, you can't sweep things under the rug. Like, that's just not how you grow from trauma.
It's just more than like a very what's the word? Like, more than like a superficial conversation. Like, try and get in deep with people. Try and like ask them about their story and things like that. Don't just ask like where you're from and what company, and that's it. Mm-hmm. You know, try and get deep and understand. Even like these issues are happening right now. Don't just text me, hey, I stand with you. You know, really like try and understand the situation, understand what people have gone through, and then look at it from a different perspective.
It shows, especially on social media, on Twitter, on Yodel, that there are people in the brigade, in the Navy, retired captains, you know, that have these opinions on black people.
Don't just settle for what makes you comfortable. Like, be uncomfortable.
I don't think we should ever be satisfied with where we're at, especially with the numbers or the amount of black females and blacks, like, in general at the academy. Like, it could always be better.
Personally, it's not my job to teach a whole company about black history. It's not my job. Mm-hmm. Too much of a burden. I may be a catalyst to even open a conversation, but then lead them towards, you know, research. Like, look into it yourself. Then you will understand me better. Then you understand so-and-so better.
I won't say necessarily that too many of my views changed because obviously I'm still very attached to a lot of personal things in my life that make me the way I am. But it definitely gave me a broader understanding of where people were coming from, why they had their arguments for certain things. You know, it was just, as the years progressed, like, I would talk to more people, I would expand my social circle, and I wouldn't be scared to like ask questions. Versus like at first I used to just be like, no one wants to hear what I have to say. Instead now I would be like, well, this is what I have to say, and I want to understand why you don't think the same way. Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
And you also have to remember that some of these people are also still raised with these same ideas, and because of that, there's still a lot of ground to make up. You can't just sweep it under the rug. You have to have those conversations, and until we decide to have those conversations and actually wake up and smell the roses of what's really going on in this country, we're going to continue to have tensions rise, especially in the African American community.
Now, we may all come away from hearing these stories with different responses. Reflect on them and then voice them, whether they be positive or negative, whether you're inclined to care or not. But I encourage us all to recognize that growing in this consideration will help us in dealing with all the other uncomfortable topics that we face. And that ultimately, within our military, we all hold the responsibility, regardless of race or any other feature of our identity, to assist each other in progressing the organization towards its highest levels of inclusion and conscientiousness. Our mission depends on such commitment, and our core values demand it.